The Galactic Concord's first diplomatic embassy approached Earth with ceremonial banners, crystalline emissary robes, and a grand expectation of trumpets, red carpets, and prepared speeches about unity across the stars. Instead, their landing beacon guided them to a squat concrete building beside a highway, wedged between a tax office and a warehouse that smelled faintly of old cardboard. There were no trumpets, no world leaders, no ceremonial delegation, just a flickering fluorescent light above a glass door labeled in peeling letters, Department of Interspecies Relations. The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. Their translator sphere assured them this was the correct location for planetary-level diplomatic proceedings. The sphere sounded confused. Inside, they found a waiting room that felt like time had given up. Plastic chairs lined the walls. A coffee machine rattled ominously. A child in a Spider-Man hoodie stared at them without blinking. Behind a scratched counter sat a single receptionist, Nadia, leaning on her elbow as if gravity had personally offended her. She did not look surprised to see the first extraterrestrials in recorded human history. She didn't even sit up straight. Without breaking eye contact from her computer screen, Nadia pushed a small plastic dispenser forward. "Take a token," she said, monotone, as though instructing them to breathe. The alien delegation's leader, Ambassador Zayer Tal, delicately plucked the paper slip. It read, A2047. The display on the wall flashed. Now serving A13. Zayer Tal attempted diplomacy. "We come to establish peaceful relations between our civilizations." "Please have a seat," Nadia replied. "Someone will assist you shortly." The aliens sat. They listened. They observed. A man with a stack of forms sighed loudly. A woman argued softly with her toddler about the ethics of licking a chair. An old fan oscillated in slow, uneven arcs as if contemplating retirement. Zayer Tal, a master negotiator who once de-escalated a solar civil war, felt something unfamiliar: fear. They had crossed light years expecting danger in the form of weapons or aggression. Instead, they had met something far more ancient and formidable: human bureaucracy in its natural habitat. The aliens waited nearly 6 hours before the digital display finally blinked to A2047. The entire delegation rose from their plastic chairs with the solemn relief of survivors summoned from purgatory. Ambassador Zayer Tal approached the counter with ceremonial grace, their 6 eyes shimmering with exhausted hope. On the other side, a civil servant named Marcus looked up slowly, so slowly it felt like a cosmic event. He pushed his glasses up his nose and spoke in the careful, measured tone of someone who had seen every type of chaos except this. "Purpose of visit?" Zayer Tal offered the official Galactic Concord scroll, a shimmering ribbon of encoded peace signatures. Marcus didn't touch it. Instead, he slid a laminated sheet across the counter. "Please confirm you've completed the interspecies visitor declaration form." 17B. Zayer Tal presented the document proudly. The alien script glittered. Marcus frowned. "You wrote in blue ink. It needs to be black." The ambassador blinked all 6 eyelids at once, a gesture that, in their culture, signaled a mental breakdown in progress. Marcus continued flipping through the form with clinical detachment. "Also, you signed on line 4 instead of line 3. And you filled out the Galactic Visitor form, but since you're establishing an embassy, you actually need the Temporary Diplomatic Presence Non-Permanent Intent form. Different department oversees that." Also, he tapped the paper. "You forgot to tick the box confirming you're not a holographic projection." "It did not know there was a box," Zayer Tal whispered. Marcus nodded sympathetically. "Most people miss it." The ambassador, desperate, attempted a psychic synchronization to accelerate the process. But the moment their mind brushed the surface of Marcus's thoughts, the alien recoiled. The human bureaucratic psyche was a labyrinth of regulations, cross-departmental disputes, contradictory memos, and coffee-fueled procedural amendments dating back decades. It was like plunging into an ocean made of paperwork, deadlines, and passive-aggressive emails. Marcus didn't even notice. While Zayer Tal steadied himself, Marcus handed over a towering stack of new forms. "Fill these out." in black ink, and bring them back before 3. The aliens realized then that humanity had unknowingly mastered a form of warfare no species had ever encountered: administrative attrition. After a night of frantic rewriting, re-inking, and debating the philosophical meaning of signature must match passport, the alien delegation returned to the counter with all forms meticulously completed. Ambassador Zaire Tal placed the neatly organized stack before the clerk like an offering to an unpredictable deity. For a brief, shimmering moment, hope flickered. Marcus took the stack, flipped through a few pages, and nodded. "Great. I'll just submit these for processing." Zaire Tal exhaled in relief. Seconds before Marcus added, "You've been selected for a routine verification audit." The room fell silent. Even the oscillating fan seemed to pause, sensing tragedy. Zaire Tal cleared their throat. "Is this verification necessary?" "Yes," Marcus replied with ceremonial monotony. "Random selection." The ambassador looked around. They were the only visitors that day. "Pure coincidence," Marcus added without emotion. The audit requirements printed from the archaic office printer like a scroll of doom. The aliens watched in horror as the page extended and kept extending until it pooled onto the floor. The checklist included proof of planetary residence for the past 3 galactic cycles, interstellar vaccination records for diseases extinct for millions of years, a notarized declaration from 3 third-party witnesses confirming they do not intend to conquer Earth, a biometric scan of all limbs, defined in the appendix as standard humanoid count 2, a smiling photograph, which caused an immediate philosophical breakdown because their species has no concept of smile, a Starship parking permit for the embassy cruiser currently parked in low orbit. The last requirement was added by an overly enthusiastic intern named Riley. Riley appeared at the counter just long enough to say, "You can't leave a ship floating indefinitely. It blocks satellite routes," before vanishing back into the maze of cubicles. The ambassador stared at the list. These requirements are contradictory. Some refer to forms you no longer use. Some ask for documents from species that no longer exist. Marcus nodded sympathetically. "Yeah, the system updates automatically. We're still figuring out why." One of the junior alien envoys attempted to protest, but Marcus simply handed over a new stack of paperwork labeled Audit Response Forms, Provisional Pre-Approval Edition. The header shimmered with bureaucratic menace. In that moment, the embassy delegation understood a profound truth. Humans might not be the strongest species, or the fastest, or the most technologically advanced, but they had evolved something far more dangerous: an administrative ecosystem capable of defeating logic, patience, and sanity itself. It was not hostility. It was not malice. It was simply procedure. And no species had ever survived fighting procedure. The alien delegation returned 2 days later transformed, not physically, but spiritually, gone with the hopeful expressions and ceremonial robes. In their place were sharpened styluses, color-coded folders, and an aura of grim determination usually seen only in veteran accountants. They had trained, studied, adapted. The Galactic Embassy was ready. They approached the counter with a precision that startled the clerks. Every form was not only completed, but cross-referenced, tabbed, alphabetized, and sealed with multidimensional verification signatures. Even the infamous Form 88X, known among humans for having instructions that contradict themselves, was flawlessly resolved by the aliens through a 14-hour debate on logical paradoxes. Marcus blinked at the stack, genuinely impressed. "Wow, you actually filled everything out correctly." The clerk beside him whispered, "They did version 7, not version 6. Did they somehow foresee the update?" For the first time since arriving on Earth, the aliens felt control returning. But human bureaucracy does not yield so easily. Rumors traveled through the office. The aliens cracked Form 88X. They understand the difference between subsection 4B and subsection 4B1. They even submitted voluntary addendums. This could not stand. At 8:03 p.m., while after closing hours, a silent alarm triggered. Administrative threat level yellow. In response, the department enacted an emergency procedure known only in legend, the Great Update. By morning, every form had been reformatted. Required documents changed categories. A new digital portal was introduced, glitchy and incomprehensible. Several rules contradicted themselves, and a cheerful notice on the wall read, "New system as of today. Please disregard all old forms. Start over." Zayertal stared at the bulletin board as if witnessing a cosmic horror. "But we matched every requirement." Nadia shrugged, sipping her coffee. "Yeah, that was yesterday." The aliens attempted to protest, but they quickly learned that the new system required them to file an official complaint on a form that no one had access to yet. Even Marcus, their usual guide through procedural madness, looked apologetic. The update hit all departments. "We're still figuring it out." A junior alien sank into a chair, whispering, This is weaponized confusion." Another, trembling, muttered, "Humanity has achieved a bureaucratic singularity." Yet despite their despair, the embassy did not give up. They reorganized, redrafted, recalculated. They began preparing again, driven by a mixture of stubborn pride and the faint hope that somewhere, buried beneath the labyrinth, a completed process existed. Humans watched quietly, from behind counters, coffee cups, and cubicle walls, not knowing they were witnessing an interstellar power, discovering that the greatest battlefield was not space, nor time, but administrative endurance. 19 Earth days had passed since the alien embassy first stepped into the Department of Interspecies Relations. By then, the delegation moved like ghosts, quiet, hollow-eyed, and carrying clipboards with a reverence usually reserved for sacred scrolls. Even their starship in orbit had begun sending automated wellness checks, concerned that its crew had fallen into a temporal distortion. But on this day, something unusual happened. The desk clerk called their number on the first try. No flicker, no system crash, no emergency fire drill forcing them outside for 43 minutes. The aliens looked at one another as if afraid to hope. Ambassador Zertal approached the counter slowly, like a pilgrim nearing the final shrine. Nadia, unfazed as always, scanned their newest stack of forms. She flipped each page with the calm expertise of someone who had processed more paperwork than most civilizations had produced in their entire histories. At the end, she stamped the final page with a loud, definitive thunk. "Approved," she said, sliding the papers back. "Congratulations. Your embassy is now officially recognized on Earth." Zayertal didn't speak. None of them did. Their 6 eyes glistened, overwhelmed by a victory that felt less like diplomacy and more like survival. One junior envoy actually fainted. Nadia, noticing the ambassador's trembling hands, reached into a small drawer and handed over a round sticker. It featured a smiling cartoon human holding a stack of forms and the words, "I survived human bureaucracy. This is customary?" Zayertal asked weakly. "It's optional," Nadia replied. "But most people take one." Wordlessly, the ambassador accepted it. Once outside, the delegation gathered in the parking lot. They had expected that when they finally made contact with humanity, they would be negotiating military alliances, trade routes, or cultural exchanges. Instead, they had spent nearly 3 weeks navigating a system so intricate, so illogical, so resistant to progress that they genuinely questioned whether humans had engineered bureaucracy as a defensive weapon. Back aboard their ship, Zayertal recorded the embassy's final report. The humans cannot be conquered. Their administrative structures are infinite, recursive, and impervious to reason. It is not warfare that protects their world. It is paperwork. Proceed with caution. When the Galactic Concord Council received the message, they unanimously agreed. Earth was to be considered a sovereign world, not because of power, technology, or threat, but because no species should ever be forced to endure such procedures again. And so, peace was achieved, not through strength nor strategy, but through the unstoppable, incomprehensible force of human bureaucracy.